Hello once again, Dave.
Ian, how you doing?
I am well, and hello, Andrea. Welcome to welcome to whatever this is.
This podcasty thing is what people seem to think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is Dave and I's excuse to see each other for an hour every week. Welcome everyone to Apex Adjacent. We have Andrea with us, who is just an all-around great car person, and Twitter, weird car Twitter personality.
Mainstay.
Yes, we'll go with that. Mainstay. That's the word I was looking for. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to just get right into a license plate game, because I feel like this is a good way. I feel like Dave's idea of this license plate game is like the perfect way to like really get into somebody's psyche really quickly. So that's what we're going to do. So basically we're going to show you 3 cars with vanity plates, but the vanity plates will be blocked out, and then we'll give you the text of the vanity plates, and you have to match them to the car.
Okay.
Right? Like Highlights Magazine, Draw the Line. And this really rewards just gross generalization and stereotyping of people. Like that's really what it does. It does a good job of.
Oh no.
Have you ever, before we start, have you ever had a vanity license plate? Where do you stand on this?
Yes, actually. I'm not necessarily opposed to them, like some people are, but I have had one. On my previous 500 at Abarths, I actually, the license plate on it was Slytherin. So,
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit on the nerdy side of things, but there were some misinterpretations that led to some jokes that were bizarre back in the day. But it's been a while since I had that.
Okay.
It was a running joke for sure. But no, it's SLTHRN.
Okay.
So, yeah, obviously SLT being a girl kind of led to some jokes. So,
yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, if that thing starts leaking oil, that's just really bad then, right? Because then it's no good.
The first one never leaked any. The second one had a brief coolant leak, and I just had to like tighten some stuff down, basically. Yeah. So that was the only leakage going on.
That's good.
Right.
I'm learning that you've had multiple Abarths, so yeah.
Yes, I have.
Oh,
no,
boy.
For sure. Like I have the tattoo and everything. So.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, we'll be getting into that for sure.
Real quick, I do want to say, before we start this license plate game, we wanted to have you on the show for many, many reasons. But if you want to sum it up, it's because I think Ian and I want to be you when we grow up. like looking at your cars, what you do, all that stuff. Like we're fans. So
well, I am honored. I'm blushing slightly. But yeah, I'm honored. What can I say?
No problem. Just wanted to get that out there. So yeah. So, okay. License plate game. So these usually have titles. So this one is, well, I guess at least they own it. So here we go. All right. Oh no, I left a layer. This one from Dana here. It's okay. There's no answers being exposed here. So
okay.
Yeah, so Ian,
and to be clear, I have not seen these as either. So we're a team here, so we can kind of talk through it together.
All right.
So let's just start by Dave. Andrea? Do you want to describe to the people what we're seeing so far?
It appears to be some sort of, on the top one would be some sort of terrible. Oh God, I want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. Maybe some flavor of G-Wagon or some sort of terrible, God only knows, just bad news.
Let's just start with.
I respect that apparently they have, some sort of lawn care company, so I can respect the need to tow a trailer, but with that vehicle, I'm not quite so sure.
Well, based on what we can see of the license plate, I think we can definitely conclude that this is the official state vehicle of Florida.
Potentially.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet there's a salvage title on this. It's kind of screams salvage title, not going to lie.
Yeah. So what we're looking at, we got a white Wrangler 4-door with the hard top, color match hard top, but We've got a lot of bright yellow, neon, neon highlighter
like
yellow.
tennis ball yellow.
Yeah, tennis
right?
ball yellow. That's highlights around it, like the mirror caps and the hinges on the rear glass, and where the fender flares used to be, I guess. And then some horrendous wheels.
Really
that
bad
don't
taillights.
fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's towing a trailer full of lawn care equipment.
Yep. And
my God.
Our buddy Dana sent us that one from Florida. So thank you, Dana.
Okay.
I assume there's just an alligator in driving that car. Like, that's what's happening. Okay. And then what? We got like a bog standard Mercedes C300.
Yeah. Man, I can't even think. First of all, I can see it's a Colorado plate. So, like, being from Colorado originally myself, and very proud of that fact, as Coloradans often are. I don't want to be too much of a hater because I want to trust that they're a sensible, good person. Because I believe that all of us Colorado folks are, but it's just really boring. Really boring. This is a car, like, I would see it at work. And just like wouldn't even think about it. I would just process it straight through, and just my ability to care would be non-existent at best, unless it had some fantastic breakage.
Right. It's described best as a car.
Yes. Yes, it is a quantity of car.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then lastly, we've got this here. Yeah. Yeah.
I shaved my facial hair into this configuration and wore this hat in honor of this car. I don't normally.
I can see that for you.
Yeah.
Oh, dearie me. Yes, but again, I can't be too much of a hater because my husband has an STI, so there is a little bit of Subaru in this house. So
Okay. All right.
I try to be respectful. Other people's life choices.
So we've got a red WRX sedan, that's a newish one. Looks like.
Yeah,
it's
rally
not
mud
an
flaps.
STI, but it has STI tailpipes, right?
I was going to say, it looks like they were poorly put on. I'm not sure what's the angle of the photo, but the depth on one side is definitely, it looks a little hinky, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's be charitable and assume that it was a bad angle on the photo. Because it could be.
Yeah.
I try to see the best in people.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot to see the worst in people in the rest of the pictures.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Florida man. Yeah, I think he wins on this one for the worst.
Yeah, so we've got it's California plate. It's got one of those you looked.
The circle game thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got some. I'm assuming these are mod companies or something.
Yeah, some tinted taillights.
Yeah.
Because, why would anybody ever want to see your brakes?
Right.
I never want to see that on cars in front of me. Who are we kidding?
Brake lights are for normies anyway. It's fine. And then some some questionable carbon fiber choices, I would say.
Yeah, that hood grip area being carbon fiber saving you so much. Yeah, so much. Yeah.
Don't forget the little arrow bits on top.
Oh,
as
yes.
Well. That's always a nice touch with your Subaru. Also with
I was sorry to interrupt. I think we have a little bit of a delay, but I think your first assessment about the craftsmanship of some of these mods might have been right on, because if you look at where it gaps, where the gaps are.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. This is like all warped through here. Yeah.
It's real bad.
And if you look on the driver's side, the rear corner of that piece, you can see it lifting up there as well.
Yeah.
So there's some shonky installation here.
I will say this was seen in Colorado. And so, our home state.
They gotta get out. I'm sorry. Get out. They gotta get out. Not right now. They can go out with all the rest of the Texans. I don't know. We'll just ship them back to their original state.
It looks like I put it on. That's not good.
Don't be that harsh on yourself. Come on.
Oh, I don't know. Dave has seen me.
I'm the mechanic.
Yeah, Dave is the mechanic. He's seen me apply stickers to things, and it doesn't go well.
He's the driver. I'm the mechanic. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's get the text of these things.
Yeah, the plates. Okay. All right. First off on the plates.
Oh, okay.
Yep, we have head gasket. HEDGSKT.
That's got to be the Subaru. That's got to be the Subaru.
That's what I'm thinking too. That's what I'm thinking too. I like it. That was
All
my first
right.
thought.
Then we have, I'm going to say clickbait, CLC bait, BAIT. And then lastly, we have TSB. TSB.
I don't know what.
Service Bulletin.
What was that, Andrea? Could you repeat that?
TSB, Technical Service Bulletin.
Right.
So that's one step basically below like recall. It's like, well, if this happens, like we kind of have a fix for it and we know it's a thing. So kind of in that neighborhood.
It's also a thing in the IT world as well. Companies will release TSBs.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's kind of like, at least in the automotive world, correct me if I'm wrong, but like it's kind of on the customer to show up with with this issue. They're not going to go out and find you to chase down these TSB fixes.
No, they're not sending out letters like they would with a recall.
Right.
I mean, obviously everybody's at this point has probably had a recall on at least one car in their life, and they kind of know how that game goes. Looking at you, Mercedes, right now. But yeah, TSBs basically, it's like, well, if this happens, and kind of we know it's a thing, and well, you got to show up, and it's more on the customer to be proactive on that, I guess, and you kind of have to do a little bit of your own research on it. So
my favorite thing about that is, besides the onus being on the customer, is like, what if it's something that prevents the customer from even getting their car to the dealer? Like they're like, the problem's fixed itself.
I had a Cayenne that was sort of in that neighborhood a little bit earlier this week, and I think I got a guy a new transfer case.
Whoa, okay.
So yeah, that was fun. Just tell him, like, hey, so Porsche didn't recall this strictly, but you can get a new transfer case. So yeah, some of those Cayennes, I think that one was a 17, and like 16 through 18s have an extended warranty on them, we shall call it, where basically, if you have transfer case problems, and this one was absolutely showing all the symptoms, it's like, guess what? You get a free new transfer case.
Oh man.
Yeah, so
how much money did you save that gentleman?
A couple $1,000 probably, but also there's like a pretty hefty wait at our local Porsche dealer. I'm up here in Boise, so we only have the one, and there's quite a few Porsches in town that people need service for. So, unfortunately, he'll probably have to wait a little while to get it. But it's like, it's kind of worth saving a couple $1,000 basically. So,
yeah,
right?
Definitely.
Yeah, even if you have to rent a car for a month, I mean, you're still going to come out on top, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, we could do it for you if you want. If you really don't want to wait that long, totally understandable. But, it's pretty obvious. It's like, yeah, just go get your free transfer case.
That's that's so great to be able to deliver news like that to people.
I love it. That's my favorite, when I can tell people, that something has gone good. Because so often it's like, congratulations, it's dead.
Right. And we're going to get to that.
Yeah. Every once in a while, it's nice to be able to deliver some good news.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, back to the license plates.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I want your gut. So talk us. I want your gut.
Clickbait is going to Florida Man, and TSB is going to the Merc.
Okay, what's your reason? You got any thoughts? What's your process?
Clickbait for the love of all, it's holy. Look at that thing. It was built to anger people on the internet. So I would definitely say, when your wheels are basically in the next county compared to where the body is located, I'm going to go with that. One was built for the internet and is therefore clickbait, just for people to hate it. And for the Mercedes, I'm guessing it's probably somebody's initials or something really boring like that, to go with the general boredom of ye old standard entry-level executive Mercedes. Okay. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I'm exactly where you are. I think the only difference in my reasoning is that I'm not giving the Jeep owner enough credit to think that they're capable of trolling. I think they genuinely think that thing looks really good. And the lawn care thing is like a side hustle that they have. But yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That I think TSB is actually just somebody's initials, and it's just really boring vanilla explanation. And then head gasket, come on.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's just a gimme. Like
Yeah.
it always has to be.
All right. Well, here are the answers. Boom. You guys got it right. Head gasket, of course.
Good job, Andrea. Here we are. Yep.
Clickbait.
Nice.
Oh, thank you, Dana. I mean, I guess
That
thank
is
you,
the
Dana.
most-
Also, screw you, Dana, for making us look at this.
That's the most Florida shit I've ever seen.
So, my coworker Tara, I forgot to put thanks Tara on this. She's the one that saw this TSB Mercedes, right? Like, what percentage of the chance do you think that there is that the person like didn't accidentally happen across TSB? Like they did it because it's a Mercedes and like just kind of like a little mechanic in joke or Mercedes in joke TSB. What percentage?
Pretty slim, I'm gonna say.
Really?
Like,
I thought they did, but
my experience with Mercedes owners is like they tend to be on the more bland side of things.
Okay.
I mean, I should specify that where I work, we deal with BMW, Mini, Mercedes, and Porsche. So that's what I'm dealing with every day. And the Mercedes owners, with rare exception, there are exceptions to every rule, but I would say they tend to be the most staid and comfortable
okay.
people. So, you know, they tend to be a little bit on the bland side of things. They're a little bit in the white rice neighborhood. They're not very flavorful. They're might put some butter in there, and it's pretty standard and boring. So that's why I'm going with that one. I don't think they're going to be really on that.
Okay.
So
okay.
we have another friend of the show named Chris. Chris White. We've had him on or we haven't had him on. No, he went karting with him. That's what it was. Anyway, he used to send us pictures. He used to be a service manager at a Mercedes dealership in Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City is one of those places where all the businesses and stuff are downtown, but everybody who's wealthy lives pretty far out. And when he was coming up, one of his jobs was he would drive people home, you know, from when they would drop their car off. And as he was driving them out of the city, which they never came into other than to drop their car off, he would make up like fake facts about the, you know, because they were all like rich, oblivious people. You know, because they would just show up with their car and then be like, "Oh, how do I get home?" You know, it wasn't like they like made a plan or whatever. They would just show up and be like, "Okay, I'm here now. I want to be there. Make it happen." You know, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yes.
And so one of my favorite things was there was like an old abandoned hotel in Oklahoma City, and he would pass it on the way to the highway every time, and he would just say, "Oh, that hotel. Did you know that is where Nixon laid low after Watergate?" And they would always go, "Huh, interesting," which is it was obviously not true. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of entertaining, I have to admit. I mean, if you're going to just quietly messing with people, that's kind of fun. It's a little way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
just a fake city tour.
And you can just imagine a Mercedes owner in their khakis, like slightly a couple minutes late for their tea time, like believing that. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of buying it, not really sure, but kind of going with it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I could buy and sell this kid. I don't care.
Well, okay. So we got to get into your fleet of cars. Like,
Okay.
let's please run us down to what the garage contains.
Let's start with the Abarth thing, because you've had two 500s.
Yes.
What happened with the first one that convinced you that the second one was a good idea? That's what I want to know.
Okay. So, so the first one I had, I actually kind of maybe put it upside down at autocross.
Wait, what?
Yes.
I autocrossed my Fiat 500 Abarth, Andrea. This isn't something that could happen. Look how
Yes,
red I
it
turned.
His voice went up so high.
I would say it was a bit of a perfect storm issue. There were a lot of things that kind of came into confluence together that caused it. Basically, I had just started hill climbing the year before. So once I decided I wanted to get into that more, especially because there was a significant incident at the hill, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I want to focus on this more, I need to do something about safety of this car. So I had a roll bar put into it. And that ended up strangely being a good idea. But I had that. I had some nice new sticky tires on it. It was a little bit of iffy pavement, a little bit of bad driving, a little bit of course design. So there were a lot of factors that went into it. But yeah, I did a full 360 in the not like usually autocross, like this is normal. This is not normal. So I did the non-normal version, and it was not fun, but I was uninjured, obviously. All was good there. But pretty much like there was never a thought of getting a different car, because it was basically a daily racer at that point. Like daily driver, raced on weekends, just the general everything. I'd kind of started, modifying it a little bit. It was a little bit lowered, and I had a rear sway bar in it, things like that. It was STX prep. For the SCCA nerds out there, it was STX class. Back when you could, I don't think Abarths actually are in STX anymore, but in any case, it had been set up for that, and yeah, it just went upside down, and then we put it on a trailer, and then I got another one, and it was the same year. The only real change was it was gray.
Did you autocross the second one?
Briefly, yes. But I also realized that maybe this isn't necessarily the greatest platform to be doing this with. So that's kind of when my MR2 happened. I actually got my MR2, well, the body of my MR2, the same day that I got my second Abarth. So I called them my twins there for a little while.
Whoa, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it was as luck happened to have it on that one. But in the intervening events between the two, I raced my Corvette for a little while, by which I mean like one event. I raced my friend's rotary powered Tram Spitfire, which was really fun. Yeah. That was when he's like, yeah, just launch it at $5,000. I'm like, excuse me, launch it at what? But it was really fun. That was definitely quite kind of him, because I was coming back from, crashing, obviously. And it's like, here, take my race car right after you crashed.
Wow.
Gee, thank you. Okay, that's brave of you. But yeah, and then
did that help you though? Did that help?
Yes. With that, it was very much a built race car. So, it had a cage in it and everything. It felt very safe, very secure. But there's still kind of the psychological aspect of when you feel the car, the weight transfer and loading in different ways. It kind of triggers something in your brain where you're like, you have this kind of physical reaction to it. And then you're like, wait a minute, no, nothing's going to happen in this car. It's perfectly fine. So you have to kind of control your thoughts that way.
Well, and it was probably a good confidence rebuilder to kind of get you back into things.
I mean, for sure. And it was nice, for a friend to show that kind of faith in me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was very sweet of him.
Yeah.
So then I got another 500 Abarth, and then, my MR2 was in the process of being built for, it had a difficult birth. It was like a year and a half. But yeah, it was, and that's what I race now.
Okay.
Well, before we move on to another question, we need to do a quick. Dave, how are you feeling right now? You doing okay?
I'm a little scared, Andrea.
You see,
why are you afraid?
Dave shook a little bit
because I drive the wheels off of my Abarth at autocross.
That's great. No, that's fantastic. I have some friends sort of in our little Fiat family who also race autocross in Abarths, and I mean, I'm the only one that's really done anything stupid. So it was just, like I said, it was a perfect storm. And I have since raced 500 Abarths in autocross as well as hill climb. Feel very comfortable with them. And I miss doing that dearly. Okay. I would do it again in a heartbeat. It's just a matter of all of the factors came into play all at once, and it added up into not working out very well. But it was not something that I feel would necessarily happen regularly. And I do feel that the SCCA is pretty smart about it.
Okay.
And yeah, if you have a car that's going to be a rollover risk, they mitigate it against it pretty well. So,
okay. I know you can't even show up in a regular 500. They're just like, no, those are going to roll, period.
They do have to be modified.
Right.
But you can actually show up in a regular 500 Abarth so long as it has been lowered enough to fit within the rules. And I want to say they are in STH or whatever, street touring hatchback.
H now, yeah.
Yeah, something of that nature. I know they're H street in the street form for an Abarth, but when you do a regular 500, it's street touring hatchback or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. How high did my voice get? It got pretty high.
I got
pretty high. Yeah. I'm gonna say I'm autocrossing on the in not this coming weekend, but the next weekend, and because I saw another tweet that you had put out about rolling a Fiat before, right?
Yeah.
And also knowing someone else that has rolled a Fiat, I think, or maybe
It's a thing.
Yeah, right? So
I mean, it's
a meatball. It's going to roll. I mean,
absolutely. It's, and just the way it is, you do have significant amounts of body roll.
Yeah.
And they are very, very front heavy. So before you roll, you'll tend to endo a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just part of the game.
Okay, is it hot in here? Hang on, I gotta turn up the air conditioning. Okay, all right. I can keep autocrossing the Fiat wheel size or wheel bolt pattern is weird. It's like 4x98, right? Yeah. So I have spacers that adapt it to 4x100. So at least my little boy is squat, a little bit further out. My tires are not great. I'm just burning them off this season, so I think it's going to take a very bizarre set of circumstances for me to roll. It's something I've thought about more on my winter tires than I have in autocross form. Yeah. Yeah,
I would say that's fair. And as long as you're not, smacking into a curb or something like that, you're pretty safe. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay.
It's gonna be fine, Dave. You're gonna be fine.
You're okay.
Okay. So your MR2. Let's talk about your MR2 because this thing looks amazing.
Thank you.
It is black, red accents, red decals. It's a Gen 1. So talk to us about how you happen across the MR2, what it took to get it going and how you like it.
Well, first of all, it's an amazing car. It's so much fun. So I'd seen them on the street, just kind of casually years before I started racing. It was always 180-degree neck break for me. I was like, what is that? That's just really cool. Every time I saw one, and it'd be like, oh, MR2. And then when I started racing, there was a guy there that his car looked really cool. But I'm married. He was married at the time, so it's kind of one of those things where it's you kind of stay a little standoffish, just keeping some proper space and just be like, yeah, I think your car's really neat. I think it looks gorgeous. It's really cool. It's really fast, no big deal. And then my first hill climb came around. He was racing at that as well. That thing was flying up the hill, let me tell you. And then it would have been about 10 seconds after he passed my worker station, he was in a very severe off, basically. He hit a tree at about 93 miles an hour. He did not have a cage in the car. And it's amazing that he survived, actually. It's a little bit hard to talk about, honestly, because afterwards, he became my best friend afterwards. But yeah, he was in the hospital for a while in an induced coma, came back around. And I was like, when you're ready to see it, I have video of your car just before you crash. Because I'd been taking video of the cars going past. And he was like, yeah, I want to see it right now. And I was like, okay, this dude's kind of crazy. He's literally laying in a hospital bed and he wants to see his car right before it almost killed him. Okay, dude, you're weird, but go for it. So I sent it to him, and we just, would chat every once in a while. But eventually he had some issues in his personal life and he just kind of like started spilling his guts about that a little bit to me just in conversations. And then after I crashed my Abarth, which was probably 9-10 months after that, it was the next season. I was like, well, I obviously need a new race car. Maybe not doing it as an Abarth. This is kind of an opportunity to split between race car and daily driver. It's like, well, I, kind of toying with ideas. And I was like, I really, really like AW11 MR2s. And this dude really, really builds really, really cool ones. So I kind of got in contact with him like, hey, I really liked your car. And obviously I need a new car. So kind of let's get a plan going for one. And pretty quickly we came together. We decided to put a 4AGE blacktop into it, which is out of a late 90s Japanese Corolla, 11 Corolla. So good old eBay engine.
Okay.
So it has some nice, kind of upgraded internally bits just to kind of make it nice. We took the turbo off of my 500 Abarth, the 1446, and slapped that in there. So it has a lot of custom fabrication to make that work.
Okay.
And then also the exhaust on it, we used some leftover 500 Barth exhaust tips and made it a Barth downhill. Yes, as you can see, one has fallen off at the hill climb, as is true Fiat tradition.
The Fiat bits are just like excising themselves. Yeah.
Yes. It's, it was just the car knew that it needed to do some weight reduction to do the best possible run. And that's what fell off. And I got my best run then. And I was handed my exhaust tip when I came back down the hill.
You could use it as the chalk the next time around.
Basically, yeah. If I had wanted to, I kind of could have done that. It's currently living on top of the pop machine that you can see there that lives next to the car.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually my trophies live up there, but for right now, the exhaust tip is living up there.
So I definitely want to address the FD RX-7 at some point, but yeah, I have questions about the MR2. So first of all, that eBay engine, did that come from Japan, or was it already here and had been used in something else here already?
No, it was out of a Japanese junkyard. Somebody in Florida on eBay imported it and then just resold it into America. And I was the crazy person who purchased it.
Nice.
So,
I bet I know what vehicle they picked it up from the port in. It's kind of like that Jeep Wrangler. They have a trailer.
Mr. Clickbait engine delivery.
Yeah, Mr. Clickbait gave me that engine. But in any case, it's been a fairly solid engine. There's been actually 2 spun rod bearings.
Whoa.
But yeah, it's okay. Everything's okay. As you can see, my voice goes up too in the memory of that. Yeah, it's painful when you find out that happens. But life goes on. You rebuild it, you do it again. Mm-hmm. So we can, between my bestie and I, we can drop the engine out of that sucker. Well, he can drop the engine out of that sucker. I can kind of like stand by and hold a screwdriver. He can drop it in like 3 hours. Like he can take an engine out of an MR2 like it's nothing. So
I will say I really appreciate the optimism that it takes to say this engine's been great. There's only been a couple of spun rod bearings. It's very similar to being like, hey, how's it going with that theater you owned? Oh, it's awesome. Only a few fires.
Yeah, no, it's painful on your soul when it happens. But I mean, things happen in racing. That's just, it is what it is. Yeah. And you pretty quickly learn to accept that. And, it's,
how is your friend? How long ago was the accident, and is he back?
That would have been that would have been about 5.5, almost 6 years ago now. So he was in a wheelchair for a while because he had 20 some odd breaks between his ankles and his hips. It was pretty severe. he was in a wheelchair for a little while, and then worked his way up after a while. About a year later, he walked across the Brooklyn Bridge.
Wow.
So that was, yeah,
Okay.
it was pretty amazing. And he actually owns a small shop here in Boise. He's a Toyota specialist, and it's been pretty amazing to watch. And he's really an amazing guy. Like,
That's really
I'm
cool.
very proud to call him my best friend. He's amazing.
That's
So,
awesome. That's so great.
yeah, so he builds amazing cars and does really cool stuff, and he has a really cool rock crawler that he takes out into the mountains here and all sorts of stuff. So he's
That's
a good
great.
dude.
Well, I'm
That's
glad to
good
hear
cars.
that story had a happy ending.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story is, I guess, cage your race cars.
Yes, cage your race cars. That was actually a requirement from my husband in order to buy an MR2. He's like, dude, you saw what happened to him.
Right.
You have to put a cage in this car to own it. And I was like, I 100% agree. You don't have to tell me twice. So it is fully caged to meet, SCCA and NASA spec. So
Awesome.
it's a pretty good car.
Yeah. I think to kind of loop back to what you're saying about like, like this kind of stuff happens in racing. I think it is a good example of like making that like daily driver race car separation, right? Like and being able to do that. Obviously, we're very fortunate to be able to make those kinds of separations, to have multiple vehicles, right? So absolutely, gratitude is first and foremost, but like the overall stress reduction in your life, like when you are able to make that decision, right?
Yes and no. I mean, when you have kind of a more of a street class car or a lesser prepped car, you don't generally have to worry about quite so many things. There's a little bit less breakage involved when you do have a car that's prepped to a higher class, and therefore is usually not a street car. So you have that split between your daily and your race car. Your race car becomes a lot more painful. Just mo mods, mo problems.
Mo money.
Yeah, mo money for sure. And I had a gentleman call in today at work who has recently bought a Cayman and is thinking about, he's like, well, I want to have it daily, but I want to do some racing with it too. And I'm like, you're going to discover sooner or later that a split here might be a good idea, and it should be better to devote that car as a race car than try and have your cake and eat it too. So, but yeah, you have to be very thankful to be able to do that. Not everybody can, but there's also there's people out there. We've seen people at autocross who have less money in their entire car than some dudes have in their tires.
Right.
So that's kind of the beauty of grassroots motorsports of all kinds, is you see all levels of cars, and it's really cool that way.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I will say like that race car and then having the daily. I do want to talk to you about the rest of your fleet, because you own an Alpha as well.
Mm-hmm. That is my daily driver.
Okay.
I have a 2018 Giulia Q4 TI Lusso. You can just tag so many names on the end of these things. But yeah, you can kind of see it barely in the background of the photo of the MR2's rear. But it's, I've had no issues with it so far. I've had it since last September.
Okay.
And I actually shouldn't say necessarily that I've had no issues with it whatsoever.
There's been a couple of spun rod bearings.
No. That was the MR2. But no, I mean, just some real like little tiny stuff, just kind of like evap leak codes, things like that. So nothing that I would really consider to be heartbreak and torment. And I was thinking about it, like, kind of running through things in my head in anticipation of doing this podcast tonight. I was driving home and I'm like, well, I mean, it has its things. There's a law that all Italian cars, not all systems can be functioning at one time.
Right.
They can't. It's one of those things. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, kind of the driver's side dash air vent, I don't get much air pressure out of that one with the air conditioning. So I'm like, I wonder if there's something sticking inside the dash. I'm just kind of going through it in my head, but I'm just like, I kind of don't care. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm not a person who uses the air conditioning a lot. I I'm a lizard, basically. I enjoy the heat. So I'm like, but I don't really care enough to consider it a problem, whereas somebody else might call that a problem. So it kind of depends on your view of how a car should be operating. Which I should say as a person
that is
who
the
works
most Italian like response to it, right? Like, I love it so much. Like, does the engine turn on? Does it make you smile? Then fuck off.
That's all you need. That is all you need.
Right.
Yeah. We drove one of those, the 2-liter,
the 4-banger.
the Julia on a press thing, and it was great. It drove super nice.
Yeah.
We drove it in the mountains, and it was great. Mm-hmm. But it did have a feel of like they spent a lot of money on the driving dynamics, a lot of time and effort on the driving dynamics,
because they're amazing.
Yeah, they were. It was really good, and it was really, you could see what they put into it, and there was also an interior, and that was kind of the feeling.
There is an interior.
Yeah,
it has one.
Yeah, and I think we counted. What was it? We counted like
8 different fonts, like at least 8 different fonts on the stuff on the inside. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go through and look at that.
Yeah, if you just look at the fonts on like the various screens and gauges and stuff, at least in the early models, it was striking how many different ones there were, and it was like nobody went over this.
No, because it doesn't matter. Like, right. I mean, there was much ado made a while ago about how Alfa Romeo, like, I guess, the head boss was like, we don't sell iPads with some car around it. We sell a car, and I'm just like, yes, please. Thank you. I don't want to buy a car that happens to have a giant iPad in it. I ignore that screen a lot. I'm not an infotainment type person. I very minimally care if it's even operational, really. So, I mean, do I have sound coming out of the stereo? That's all I need some of the time. I don't need it all the time because I can just listen to the car as well. So
you've purchased the right vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm lucky to live in an area, like, we have some pretty good driving roads about, depending on 5 to 10 minutes from my house. So, I can go back and play when I feel like it. And it's really entertaining to be able to just take your daily driver out and just go be entertained by your car.
Yeah.
On a street 5 minutes from your house. That's
so
cool.
Great. Yeah.
And I will say, I've driven both the Quadrifoglio and the 2-liter with the 4-wheel drive. And I think, honestly, on a really tight road, the 2-liter is tons of fun. It's great. It's
fantastic.
Really, really
I have so much fun with it, especially after putting a good set of tires on it. This is not a knock against Alphas. I should say this really applies to all cars, that whatever tires that they come on out of the factory, generally thinks the only things you're guaranteed to have is they're round, they're black, and they hold air, and you really only need 2 of those. So at about 24,000, 25,000 miles, I had one of the tires crack, straight down the tread. So I was like, it still has plenty of tread on it. It just happened to crack. And the ones from the factory are Pirelli run flats. And I live, real close to a tire shop. So I just had tires sent to the tire shop and showed up and was like, hello, please put tires on my now slightly gimpy car. And I got good sticky tires that aren't crappy run flats, and it's fantastic. Yeah. So, and I had the alignment checked on it, obviously, to make sure nothing was out of order and causing weird tire wear issues. And the alignment guy we work with a lot at work, he's like, dude, this thing drives kind of freaking amazing. And I'm like, that's why I bought it.
Yeah.
So it's a great car for sure.
That's so great. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the Mr. 2, the Alpha. What's the story with the FD RX-7?
That's actually my husband's car. He has 2 of them. I saw both of your faces on the camera turn at the exact same time. That was kind of perfect. But yeah, he has 2 1994 RX-7s. The black one that you can see in the picture, that one was imported from Japan. Would have been about, almost 2 years ago now. It's crazy to think about. Still has a rotary in it, of course. pretty cool car, gotta admit. It's, as with all things rotary, a little bit more projecty than was necessarily expected. We learned not to trust Japanese auction grading. Don't trust that at all, as it turns out.
Okay.
Oh.
It was hemorrhaging coolant when it came off the boat. There was no mention of that. And in some of the paperwork too, when after it was purchased, we saw like kind of they release more paperwork to you, and we're like, this didn't. Well, we think it started black, and then it was white, and now it's black again, and the paint job was not very good in places. So there was definitely some kind of repair of that one, and my husband was already kind of trying to do a little bit of like a Spirit R. I hesitate to say tribute, but it was kind of his OEM plus type build, and it turned out absolutely beautiful. But it's an RX-7. It has its moments. The other one is an American car originally, and it is the Village Bicycle of Boise Autocross. It has an LS6 in it. It has been owned by a few different people, and it is now, ours. And that thing it's a monster, let me tell you. No street manners whatsoever. Horrible to drive on the street. Just creaks and pops, and it breaks your spine, and the seat there's no padding left in it. But it is a beast to autocross. Absolute beast.
Okay.
So it was run by a couple of pretty good autocrossers previously in its history. So that car is really, really fun, and that was the first car I ever rode along in an autocross, and I'm pretty sure my nail marks are still in the passenger door card. So two different cars there. Those are really fun.
That's amazing.
Okay, so what else is in the fleet?
Yeah.
The rest of my husband's fleet, he has an STI. It's a 2014 STI, if memory serves, but doesn't really have much of anything done to it. Like, it has a sway bar in the rear, but otherwise it's very much just a fun daily driver. Our daughter really adores it for some reason. I don't know, but she really, really likes it. But yeah, that's just a fun little car. He bought it and then he sold it and bought it back, and now he's looking at selling it again. So, but my husband has car ADD. He's incapable of keeping them for more than like 2 to 3 years, except for the RX-7. I'm pretty sure we will be burying him in the black one. So I don't think that one's going anywhere.
Okay.
But otherwise, you can't see it, because it's parked in front of the MR2. But we do. He. It's more mine than his. But in any case, I have a 1976 Lancia Scorpion as well. So.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah, we got to pull up a picture of one of those for the folks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in there somewhere.
What color?
It's silver, so
Okay, yeah.
I get a lot of, is that a DeLorean? And then people get really disappointed when they realize it's not a DeLorean. But there are a handful of people. Yeah, mine is very similar to that one, just minus the Plimsoll line on it. It's otherwise very, very similar. There's a handful of people, when they realize what it is, they get pretty interested in that.
Yeah.
But most people go, is that a DeLorean? Oh, never mind. So, we took it to a show last summer, and I honestly wish I'd had a whiteboard with tallies for how many people had walked up and dropped the DeLorean line.
Okay.
So it was fun for that. And, of course, the engine lid in the back opens sideways. So it's like a big old flag sticking up in the middle of the field. And that was kind of entertaining in its own right. But it's a cool car. It's a Lancia, so it is, no matter what, it will always be a project. It currently needs a water pump, which means I currently need to get time to put the water pump in the car. Other than that, it's pretty good. Probably needs a good carb cleaning. I think somebody ran some ethanol gas through it at one point. It sat for about 18 years before showing up at a dealer auction locally. A friend of mine who works at a dealership, he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, this is out in Nampa." So I messaged my father-in-law, who owns a dealership here in Boise. I was like, "Hey, are you going out to Nampa tomorrow to look at any cars? Because there's one out here I kind of want to look at." So I tagged along, and here I am crawling around on the pavement at a dealer's auto auction in the rain in November. So freezing my butt off, trying to surreptitiously kind of peel up the carpet in places to look for rust and things like that. But it turned out the car was really, really, really nice. And I got it for an absolute steal. The wholesalers who had they got it twinned in a deal with a pickup that they really wanted. And the guy who was selling it was like, well, you have to take this thing because I just want to clear out the garage. So they took it. It came with a spare transmission, which I think it's going to need because I only have a few gears right now. But I mean, you don't need all of your gears. It's Italian car things. You don't really need all of them. But yeah, so they just had no idea what it was. It was listed backwards. It was a Scorpion Launcha.
Oh, nice.
Nobody had any idea, and it doesn't have a reverse at the moment, nor did it then. And it wouldn't make the turn onto the test loop. So we had to get out, push it backwards to make the turn, and everybody at the auction saw that, was like, nope, not touching that heap. And so we got it for a really good deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're not getting a lot of competition, right?
It truly, it went from, like, we toyed with the idea of getting a Scorpion to, okay, there's a Scorpion in our garage. Like, between finding out it was there and it coming home was less than 24 hours.
Oh my God.
So it happened really, really fast.
Car ADD.
And then, yeah, basically. And then I also have a 1980 Fiat X19 project, which is a bit of a long-term project, but it also dropped on my head, basically. It was given to me for free. It had been basically abandoned in a gentleman's carport, and he was like, just get it out of here. It's very much like that orangish reddish one up there in the corner. Yeah. But he was just like, get it out of here, just as long as you don't crush it. And I was like, absolutely. That's the thing I've noticed in the Fiat world. A lot of it is about just keep the cars going. Just do what you have to do to keep it going. In both the modern Fiat world as well as the vintage Fiat world, it seems to be a thing. So I felt very lucky to have that just kind of land on my head. And I happened to have the engine from my crashed Abarth laying around. And so slowly but surely said engine is going into the X19. And oh boy, is it a tight fit in there. But yeah, so that's the plan with that one. And it'll be interesting.
I'm sorry. We're blowing through this, but you have a hat trick of transverse mid-engine 4-cylinder cars. That's kind of amazing.
I'm not getting a Fiero. I'm drawing a line. I will not get a Fiero. I would love to have a 914. When I crashed, I did think about getting a 914 because my father had one when I was born. And I thought that would be kind of a nice little intergenerational, because he passed away when I was very young. So I was like, I thought it'd be cool for me to own one as well. But even a rolling shell of a 914 was like kind of painfully expensive compared to a rolling shell of an MR2. So yeah, kind of backed away from that one. But
you could conceivably, with the size fleet you have now, get basically every transverse 4-cylinder mid-engine car that has ever been created and have room left over. Like, you're only like a couple away, right?
In theory, but for me, it's a matter of just kind of buying what's in my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that what's in my heart tends to be cheap nuggets, I guess.
I mean, you have a type.
You do have a type. Yeah, these are not Pokemon, Ian. She doesn't need to catch them all. Yeah.
I certainly have a type, and I love it. What can I say? It's so much fun. It's such an interesting kind of niche to occupy. Yeah. And I just kind of fell into it. It just happened.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that you're putting a 1.4 multi-air engine into an 81 Fiat.
Well, we do plan to head swap it to a T-Jet, as is Fiat tradition. You can do such things because the engines are basically Legos.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, on my Scorpion, somebody had previously swapped the head on from. I want to say it was a 1976 124. So this is a thing with Fiats. You can just kind of, they're toys. You can swap as necessary how you want. I only have a partial build sheet. So there's a little, it's definitely been in kind of some discovery going on. They said that, like the build sheet said that there was, head work done. It didn't mention anything about being swapped, but I was cleaning it one day and obviously I looked up the casting number on it for fun and I'm like, this is from a 124. And I know it has some different cams in there as well. It has a performance cams and stuff. So, but
wow, that is
that's been a cool
amazing.
part. Yeah, that's been a cool part too, because in a Scorpion Facebook group, there was a guy who, just goes through and he has tons and tons of photos of different Scorpions and he posted these and he's like, some car in the 90s in Boise. And I'm like, that's my car. That's my car. I did the Leonardo DiCaprio thing. Number 203. I'm 203. And that was really cool to see. And he had some additional information on the car that I didn't have. So another great thing about, Fiat Lancia, I'm sure Vintage Alpha world as well. People know the cars and they've been around the block.
Wow.
And it's kind of nice in that way. So there was some additional information I was given that way as well.
That's so great. That's so great. Yeah. Hey, I do want to loop back a little bit to motorsports, right? Because obviously that is very near and dear to your heart. Like, how did you initially get exposed to autocross? What was your entry point into being a person that drives the cars at the thing?
So originally, when I was living in Colorado, we were living on Cap Hill, Wash Park, kind of in those neighborhoods. Didn't really have access to a garage or anything. So that wasn't really something we could do. My husband did have a 240SX that twice somebody tried to steal it off the street. We lived at like First and Ogden, so somebody tried to steal it twice off the street there in 1 week. That was pretty cool. They broke off a skeleton key in the door and then broke off a skeleton key in the ignition. But it had extremely bald tires. I have pushed it off of many curbs in the snow, but so never really raced or anything. But we would, sometimes he would take me up in the canyons and play around a little bit. And I was like, this is pretty fun. Then when we moved up here, pretty much the first thing he did, because that was when the blue RX-7 first showed up, the LS6 car, and he took that out to autocross because he had done a little bit as a teenager in his Corvette, and took me out on some runs. And I was like, okay, I can get down with this. This is really fun. It was the last event of the season, unfortunately. So the next spring, I showed up in a Fiat 500 Pop at my first event. Nobody realized that it was unclassable, so I ran that for 1.5 events until Papa McVeigh, our local main safety at the time, was like, this is unclassable, so next time you show up, you have to have a different car. And that was not exactly a problem because my husband at the time had an E46 M3. So it's basically like if you wean a baby off of like formula or breast milk directly onto Jägermeister.
Yeah.
Is basically what happened. It was really, really fun, but I'll admit I never necessarily really clicked with that car. It was an SMG car, which might have something to do with it, of course. Not to talk down on SMG cars, but it's just, it is what it is, not necessarily great for autocross. But it was definitely something that was really fun and I really enjoyed. And it was, when you move to a new city, it was kind of a ready-built friend group to jump into. So it was nice from a social aspect as well. So finished out the season in the M3. And then at the start of the next season, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. And that's when my 500 Pop turned into an Abarth. And I got started on that.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
so
amazing.
He introduced me to it and it just kind of, picked up really quickly like that.
And then the jump to Hillclimb, like.
Yes. There's sort of a gentleman's agreement here. So I run with the Northwest Hillclimb Association, I should say. There's kind of a gentleman's agreement that you have to have some experience, either autocrossing or track, before you can do a hill, because it is absolutely very dangerous.
Yeah, sure.
And I learned that at my first event. And so you do have to have some experience with it. And I don't know, it was just really, really fun. And there is nothing like it. It's racing driver crack, basically. Once you do it, you cannot stop doing it. It is amazing. Um,
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with hill climb. I think it's really
yeah,
cool. I really want
you
to
get
do it.
to you get to the top and your hand is just doing this. Like you can't even get your water bottle to your mouth. You're just shaking so bad from it, and just like I can't even really describe it effectively. And I'm not even one of the fast ones. Like I'm, I'm not slow, but I'm also definitely not one of the fast people. And some of the people who are whipping up the hill in ridiculous times, it's pretty cool. But it's also one of those things where you just expect people to crash. It's kind of like circle track in that way.
Right.
Somebody's going to go before the day is done. And I've been hill climbing like 6 years now, and only one event that I've been to did not require use of the wrecker to at least pull somebody out of a bush. There was one I went to at Maryhill, which is right on the border between Oregon and Washington, like right before you get to the Dales. And somebody sent a Camaro off the edge, and I believe the fuel tank ruptured was what they found, and it ended up lighting a third of the course on fire.
Oh my God.
Luckily, the gentleman was okay. He was shaken up, but they were able to get him out in time before everything started really catching on fire. But it was like September in a dry, grassy area,
Oh,
and you guys
no.
know how that game goes.
Right.
It went up pretty quickly, and it was pretty obvious within minutes that there were not enough fire extinguishers on the entire hill to take care of it. So obviously had to call in some wildfire help on that one.
Holy cow.
The gentleman who was also on my station, he was a firefighter on his day off. So he was able to pretty quickly call buddies and be like, hey guys, we kind of got a situation.
Oh yeah, let me just hop in the group chat here. Yeah.
Let me get in the Slack channel.
Yo, bros, can you like come to Maryhill?
Bring the usual stuff.
It was interesting because my station was like 2 down from the top, and I was above the fire, and it reached the road pretty quickly. And we're like, are we going to be able to get down from this? How do we get out of here? And there was an extension from basically the upper pits area over to the highway. But this was a road that hadn't been touched in like 20 years. Like, no, it's been locked off. Maryhill is completely private. It's owned by the art museum there, which is very lovely. If you ever in the area, you should probably stop by. But so it's been completely locked off. They cut the locks on it and took the worker bus up over this route along with several of the race cars. These are hill climb cars. They are not rally cars. And all of a sudden they had to compete in rally. There was one car, there was a Corvette that put a hole in the oil pan going up and over. But yeah, the bus was pretty scary because it was swaying pretty good, but it was like, you know what? I mean, we just have to get out of here. It's on fire. What are you going to do? So going up and over, and then I was with a friend of mine on the bus, and we, just started making a plan of how to get his car back to his campsite, get him back, get his truck, pull everything out, so just running back and forth using my Abarth to shuttle between his camp, race car, truck, all that fun stuff. Everybody got out okay, and they still somehow allow hill climbs at Maryhill. Don't ask me, but it's awesome. So that's really fun. But that's the only one I've seen light on fire. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen again. But yeah, people crash, things happen.
Couples of spun rod bearings, couple of fires. Yeah.
There was even that. There was another time actually that the MR2 died on the dyno. It was the first time it died, and I was there watching, and basically the oil filter relocation kit on it, a coupling vibrated apart.
Oh no!
And it just starts pouring oil.
Oh God!
And I'm crouched down at the time, just kind of looking, and it's on a dyno, so it's a little bit higher up, and I just see gold pouring out underneath the engine. I could barely even scream. I'm just like, Rory, got it.
Oh my!
But that was another one of those moments where like your soul is kind of leaving your body. So, like I said, the MR2 had a bit of a difficult birth, but it's fun. It was worth it. It was worth all the pain, and it continues to be worth any pain.
I want to highlight something that Dave pointed out, because I think he's on to something here. Is that you have displayed to us very just obvious optimism, right? Like, I mean, a couple of spun rod bearings, it's a reliable engine.
You're not like the glass is half full. You're like, I filled up the glass. I have like an extra gallon.
I got a glass and a half, motherfuckers. Yeah. You know, the course caught on fire. It's still my favorite sport, you know. But I just want to, because the people just listen to this on audio only as well. But your Twitter profile, the first thing in your bio is race car goth, and yes. I love the intersection already of race car and goth, and that Venn diagram. It's a pretty narrow intersection already. And then if you add optimist in, I feel like that's an even a narrower intersection, which is
yes
pretty great.
And no. I think back home, this was many years ago, a friend of mine who has since passed away. We went out to a club. Denver has a surprisingly nice goth scene, as it turns out. I got kind of spoiled on that one. So we went to a goth night, and he was a normie. So a normal gentleman, I guess, in the parlance. But he, wanted to go. So he was like, okay, cool. And we've been to, plenty of other normal nightclubs in Denver, and this, we were hanging out in the clubs probably something like 2007 to 2012, that neighborhood. So when dance music was really big, and Denver was one of, the cities for it, strangely enough. And he was like, I have been to 1,000 club nights in normal clubs, and everybody is sort of miserable a lot. They're escaping things, or they're just, drama's happening. They're miserable. And then you go to a goth night and everybody's happy. Everybody's in their in their zone and just enjoying it. And it really struck him how it was opposite to how he would expect. And I found that in the goth community in general a lot. People, much is made about the darkness and the sadness and the suffering and the this and the that. And, we all sit around listening to The Cure or whatever, which people forget. There's a lot of really joyful stuff there too.
Right.
And with goth music in general, it is definitely a music club based subculture. It's not necessarily about fashion that much when you really come down to it. It's there, but it's much more about the music and culture, literature, things of that nature. There's a lot of joy to it. The way I like to describe it is you couldn't enjoy the beauty of the stars at night if it wasn't for the darkness. And I see that a lot in life in general. There's a lot of darkness and terrible, terrible things in the world, but there's a lot of beauty too. And when you have that dark background to cast the beauty against, you see it that much more. So,
Well, and I think I have a couple thoughts. One is to tie your story you just told to car culture, which I think is a good one. And then I have some slightly teasing things to say about goth culture. So the first thing though is that you mentioned like the joy of being at a goth night, and I feel like you could kind of tie that into being at a track day or something like that, where like normally in my life I'm not doing 100 miles an hour and going around this corner as fast as I can, and this is my escape from that. Whereas I'd like a normie club night would be like they're going to an indeterminate escape, right? That they don't know what the escape is going to be. But, with a track day or a goth night, it's very like, oh, I know that this is what I like and this is what's going to help.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely agree there.
And before Ian makes fun of goth culture, before he teases you, I do want to make a correlation with what you said about like the beauty. We wouldn't have the beauty if it wasn't for like the darkness, or having these things in contrast to one another makes the beautiful things even more so, right? And I through what like your experiences in car culture, like a thing that you posted on Twitter really impacted us. And we love it so much. It was you talking about when you took your race car to your daughter's STEM science day at school. And like seeing your car and like other kids experiencing your car, like stuff like that. So could you please tell the listeners about that experience, because it was amazing.
Yeah, it really was. Honestly, it was a wonderful sort of thing. So I took my car to an elementary school STEM evening. So there was all sorts of kind of things set up. There were a lot of local sort of science-based businesses. I think there was like the local wildlife foundation or something. There was a lot of stuff there. There's a really cool place in town. It's a store called the Museum that has all sorts of weird, nerdy stuff, basically, that you can throw together, old electronic bits, art stuff, you name it, they have it. It's a cool place. They had some stuff set up. They had, paintings and just all sorts of really cool STEM stuff that was put together by the community. And when I got the email that, hey, does anybody have anything like your business, anything like that? I was like, well, I have a race car, which is just a rolling chunk of STEM when you think about it. It's all science, technology, engineering, math, and of course, art as well. You think obviously in making it look pretty, but also fabrication has a lot of art in it as well. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take it, signed up for it. And they plonked me right out in front of the school. It's like the first thing when people came in. And it was really cool to see a lot of kids being exposed to this for the first time. Funny, one of the funny ones is one of the kids is like, where's the Prindle? I'm like, so what? Where's the Prindle? The thing in the middle. Oh, Prndl. I don't have one of those. This is a manual transmission car. So, getting to explain that. And I pulled out sort of in the middle of the MR2, the armrest center console piece. I pulled that out. My best friend has a carbon fiber one. So I borrowed his as well and used it as kind of a display for how materials in racing are used. You go for the lightest possible. That's so cool. It was a good example of the difference between, just a stock piece and a piece specifically for racing, a carbon fiber piece. So, that was kind of fun to do and just messing around, and kids were just crawling in and out of it. Eventually, I turned the battery switch off because they discovered the pop-up headlights. I protect those. So kind of quietly turned the battery switch off, but letting kids crawl through and everything. And there was this one little girl. She was probably like first grade or so, I'd say. And she, was just sitting in the passenger seat, just kind of interested in it. And there's a little boy in the driver's seat just going wild at the time. So she was being a little steamrolled with it. And so I was just answering questions for her, and she was like, is this your car? It's like, yes, this is my race car. And her face just lit up. Sorry.
No, it's so amazing, right?
Yeah, it really was. Her face just completely lit up. And you can see that moment where she was like, I could do this. This could be me.
Right.
And it was really just this truly amazing moment where I was like, damn, this is powerful in a way. Sorry.
No, it's beautiful.
But yeah, it really was. I have no idea who this kid is. She ran off and played with her friends, and all that. But it was that moment where you just see a door kind of open. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if she ends up racing and, I don't know, maybe she'll be the first Formula One female driver, this, that, or the other, or, whatever the case might be with that. But just to see a little girl realize that there was, an opportunity where she didn't necessarily see that there was one before.
Right.
Yeah, and she may not even ever get into racing or even know anyone who gets into racing.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It was just a kid seeing an opportunity where she didn't know there was that before.
Right.
And that
the extrapolation from that is like huge, right? Like, cuz anytime someone tells her that she can't do something, she's going to be like, well, no, that's bullshit.
Well, yeah, right? I can do that because, I saw somebody doing something really weird once upon a time. And, we all have those moments where we remember as a kid where somebody kind of opened a door for us. Yeah. And even if it wasn't something that wasn't a path that we ended up taking, we saw that those doors can open. And it kind of, you realize that.
Right.
And it was a moment where I got to give that to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think about it and it really it touches your heart a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm a dork, I know, but
No,
like,
you're not.
there's
No,
people-
on top of everything, like the misogyny in motorsport, like all, like there's so many like barriers that people face anyway, right? Like so like not just from like just breaking down like or opening the eyes of, you know, this little girl that like something like this is possible. Like it just has such an incredible context. It is so far reaching into aspects of the culture that need to be corrected, that need to just die off, right?
And I feel like we don't necessarily, we always see that like, oh, well, there's misogyny in motorsports and car culture and this and that, but we don't realize the beauty of how far we've come.
Right.
You know, there, even like just historically, you know, you look back to like Janet Guthrie and people like that, where, yeah, it was a woman in motorsports decades ago. We don't think about that now because everybody just goes, oh, Danica Patrick, girl race car person thing. That's what the vast majority of people think of.
Right.
And it dates so much farther back to that. I can't remember her last name. I want to say it was Dorothy. I can't remember her last name to save my life, but way, 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 way early. This would have been in 19 teens, 1920s, somewhere in there, I think. She accidentally invented the rearview mirror. That's the one thing I remember, because she would hold up a hand mirror to see what was going on behind her.
Yes, I've read about this. Yes.
Yeah, and she like kind of silly, because she kind of did end up sleeping her way into a race car. So kind of gloss over that, but whatever. But in any case, she ended up racing, and it was kind of sad because she had her few years and just kicked all sorts of ass, and then really just disappeared and died anonymously, you know, when she wasn't even very old. And it's just been forgotten parts of motorsports, and I think people forget about that. People don't realize that, especially women, they think they come out to an autocross for the first time and think it's all going to be guys and it's scary and stuff. But there's actually a really good community of women out there. You know, there's trans people of all kinds who are racing, you know, non-binary folk. We have, you know, a girl who recently transitioned who's started racing here locally as well, which that was really cool to see. You know, I'm like looking at the subs and I'm like, wait, wasn't that, because this was, you know, a racer's son who came up that way originally. Like everybody knew this as this person as this guy's son. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at the subs, I'm like, wait a minute, he has a daughter? Oh, right. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Just now you're that guy's daughter. And you don't even think about it. So I think there's more and more acceptance, and people don't necessarily realize it's always there until they come out and race and realize that, yeah, you will find women on course, tons of women. You will find LGBT people of all stripes, all different genders, you name it nowadays. And not enough is said about that. Not enough is said that, yeah, there are people out there who are women, who are, you know, trans of all forms, who are gay, lesbian, you name it. Everybody's out there competing in motorsport, and it's really cool. Like, I think it's amazing that that's there, but nobody really talks about it, it seems like. But, you know, except when you're actually looking for that. You know, if you are out there looking for like out motorsports, things like that, if you are LGBT and looking for that community specifically, then yeah. But you walk into it and you don't realize it's there. And it is. It's like, come on, guys. Yeah, of course. Women have always been involved in motorsports. There have always been LGBT people in motorsports. Just you didn't always realize they were there.
Right.
And now people are realizing that more. So that's cool.
Well, and it kind of highlights the thing that I think about a lot, which is that, you know, gatekeeping in any sort of hobby is the most silly, because you have such an obvious shorthand, right? Like any two car people can, even if they're from, you know, one's an off-roader and another one is a track rat, you know, you can very quickly develop a pretty quick, you know, shorthand and sort of like immediate rapport, no matter who you are or what like sort of subgenre of motorsport you're involved in. Like, it's such a quick thing that it makes like worrying about other people's identities strange. You know what I mean? Like, and or even like to filter your the thing that happens a lot is like the little girl being surprised that it was your race car, right? Like that in the context of the hobby seems pretty silly, right? Like it's a
Right?
little,
Yeah. Like
ridiculous.
we all see kids, running around, boys, girls, nobody even thinks about it.
Right.
But there's, an entire world outside of cars. I know it's shocking. We often
What is this
forget.
now?
Yes. Believe it or not, there is a world outside of cars. And sometimes when the car world bleeds over into the normal world, it can kind of surprise people a little bit. But, and I mean, it's throughout car culture in general. Like we have a little Fiat family, as I call it. It's a group of friends and I, and like in a couple weeks here, a bunch of us are meeting up in Las Vegas because the youngest we're celebrating his 21st birthday. And I always joke that he's my Fiat son. He's my gay Fiat kid. But sometimes it's nice to have an additional mom who isn't actually your mom that you can kind of run things past, especially a mom who's because I'm bisexual, so I don't even think about it. It's like acknowledging the existence of my left arm. I'm like, okay, that's part of me. Cool, whatever. But it's nice to have somebody who's into the same cars, who understands kind of the community that you're in on another aspect of your life. Because nobody in cars and racing, we don't actually go out to meet the loves of our lives usually.
Mm-hmm.
It's unless the love of your life is a car. And let's face it, a lot of us have that. But just from an interpersonal standpoint, you're not exactly going out to find your next date. And everybody has these aspects of their lives that they don't realize. And then you come together and have a little Fiat family, and it's cool that way. But you see that with gaming and stuff a lot too. People who don't live in the same towns or whatever, and they all somehow end up as a little family, and then every once in a while they meet up and things like that. So it's the same way with car culture and with Fiat culture, especially. Everybody's kind of a little bit of a family. So
That's awesome. Yeah. That's so great. Yeah. Oh, hey, Andrea, it's so nice to talk to you tonight. We're so thankful for you and for what you're doing. Yeah.
If people want to hear more about your hill climb adventures, other things you got going on, where do they find you?
Mostly I'm on Twitter at Neon Dancer, which, funny story, it's a Mark Almond lyric, but anyway, completely car unrelated. I've been on Twitter for 13 years, so it kind of predates all that insanity. At Neon Dancer. If you want to find me on Instagram, I'm TinyScorpion44. If you want to find me in Boise, you can usually find me at Autocross. You can also find me at the local, German Mercedes, Porsche, Mini, BMW shop that I won't name, but it's really obvious who it is. If you're in Boise, you probably know us if you have one of those vehicles. And if you do, if you have a Mini, I will likely be the one committing it to the grave if it's broken. So that's where you can usually find me. Sometimes at the grocery store. Apparently you can find me there too. Random things like that. Wherever.
Dave, if people enjoyed all of this, what should they do?
Oh man, just subscribe to us on YouTube. Yeah, just do that. If there are other maniacs out there with vanity license plates that you happen to get a picture of, please text them to 720-515-1391 or slide into our Twitter DMs with those pictures like a weirdo. Yeah, either one.
They slid into my DMs, and that's how I ended up here.
Yep, that's how this happened. Yep.
Yeah, we're known to do that. Yeah. Andrea, this was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Dave, you're fine. Everybody, we love you. Goodbye.
You're pretty cool too, Ian. Let's just say, Ian, well done. Well done leading all of this. So yes, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure.